this is Trinisha Cottrell, and today I wanted to talk about shipwreck. So, I know it's like a weird thing to like have as a phrase or a title of a video, but tonight I was reading First Timothy, and it talked about faith. It talked about different laws that they had and how the law can be used for good, but it can also be used for bad. And then Paul writes about how God even forgave him. The mercy that God showed towards Paul, even when he was the worst of the worst, as he said, is unlike any other patience that any individual could have. And as I continued to read through it, it started to talk about faith being shipwrecked when you are doubtful or when you have a blasphemy or something like that. It's almost as if because you are rejecting God or because you are being disobedient or because you are not believing and you're doing this intentionally, not that you just don't know. Like even in the Bible it talked about not knowing, and because you didn't know, God forgave you, or he had more grace for you because you didn't know better. But once you know better, like Maya Angelou says you have to do better. And so with God, when we don't know any better, when we make mistakes because we're human, God is forgiving and he's so patient and kind to us. He shows us so much mercy. And the type of patience that God has for us is the type of patience that I wish I could have. And when I was reading this and it talked about being shipwrecked, the first thing I thought of is, okay, what does shipwreck really mean? I started to do research and try to figure out exactly the meaning of being shipwrecked. And historically, being shipwrecked would mean that it was like a sinking or a breaking down of something. And the Bible, man, when I tell you the Bible got verses, like, like any artist could have to go up in verses against the Bible and they would lose because it's bar after bar after bar. Like, you don't understand. And so whenever I'm reading it, I'm like, okay, I see what you did there. Like, yeah, all right. And it said a shipwrecked faith. And when most people read it, they probably just breeze right past it. They probably just say, oh, okay, shipwrecked faith. We know it's just, something that's destroyed or something like that. We're just thinking of a ship that's crashed or, something simple. But not a lot of people dive into like the meaning of different things or want to learn more about different terminology, especially in a theological sense. But for me, when I want to gain more knowledge of the Bible, when I really want to understand God's word, I like to dive deep into the meanings of different things. I like to look up research and historically and where the word may come from, where it may be rooted or whatever else it is. And not only was the faith going to be destroyed, not only was the faith something that would not be seen as something that's non-existent, it's something that was broken down, something that sunk. And sinking usually happens through time. It usually happens not at once. Most of the time when you see something sinking, it's not just like it's sunk. It's like something that goes through a process to sink. It's almost as if it's intentionally being faithless instead of because you're intentionally not seeking God. So when it says sinking, not only am I thinking of it as just something that is crashed or destroyed or something that happened in a moment's notice, but I'm thinking of something that happened through time. I'm thinking of something that happened little by little. Maybe it didn't happen, just a little tiny bit of sinking at once. Maybe it's something that drastically changed, but it didn't happen in an instant. It's something that gradually happened. And for me, when I think about someone's faith being lost like that, it really makes me think of how we really do have to be intentional with our walk with God. We really do have to be intentional about seeking Him every day. And in the Bible, it also talked about false witnesses. It talked about how people who are pretending to know are worse off than people who claim that they know everything, that are seeking to teach people things about the Bible that have no basis. Like for me, I'm here because God wants me here. This is where God told me to go. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just following God's lead. Like, I don't want any person to seek after me. I want them to seek God. And when I'm sharing my story, I'm hoping it can be used as a testimony. It can be used as someone seeing, okay, well, she did it. Maybe I can do it too. Not as a copy paste, not as a idolize some one human being kind of thing, but as a, because I see that she can do it, because she's made so many mistakes. I know God can forgive me as well, or God will forgive me as well, because I thought that I was alone, and I'm not, you are all in one, but I thought that I was the only person dealing with this. I thought that I was the only person who've ever made a mistake, or, because you see so many people trying to pretend to be perfect. And for me, I really want to be transparent. I really want to be whatever it is that God needs me to be in these videos. I don't ever claim to be perfect. I don't ever claim to have all the answers, and I'm learning just like everyone else. And so when I learn something new, I just try to share that information here, because I think if I thought of it like this, maybe someone else is thinking of it like this. Maybe someone else can avoid having to go through heartbreak that they're putting themselves through. Maybe someone else can have standards and stand up for themselves in an area where I couldn't. Maybe someone else can believe in themselves in areas where I didn't in the past. Maybe someone else can see that I'm waiting because I'm waiting on God. I'm not just trying to rush into a relationship or anything that's not of God. I don't want something if God's not in it. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, from the pit of my soul. Like, I really, really, truly, and honestly don't want anything that doesn't have God in it. And I don't mean to pretend. I don't mean someone to fake, because it's getting crazy out here. But I don't need someone to pretend as if they know God. I need someone to really know God. Like, really, really know God. Like, and when you know God, it's hard to have little faith. It's easy to feel hope deferred. It's easy to be concerned about things, but worrying is something that I don't do, because I know God's got it. Now, do I feel a certain type of way about myself some days? Do I like get in some moments where I feel like a little disappointed in myself because I didn't make the best decision, or because I've done some things wrong in my life? Absolutely. But that does not mean that because I do those things, because I feel a certain type of way, that I have any less faith in God. My faith is always there. My faith is not going anywhere. And my relationship with God, I want to grow every single day. I want to be intentional about getting to know Him. I want to be intentional about being in His Word. I want to be intentional about letting God lead my life and really be everything that He intended to be for me. I don't want to go back. I don't want my faith to be shipwrecked. I want my faith to be above water. I want to be like in the Bible when 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 the storm happened, and I want to be walking, not I don't mean this in real life. I just mean like in a like analogy kind of sense. I want to be walking on the water, having faith in God, keeping my mind focused on God so I could stay above the water. I don't want to get shipwrecked. I don't want to be sinking. I don't want to be slowly breaking down. I want to be built up. Now, is there a breaking that will take place to allow me to be at that level? Absolutely. Because you can't take negativity into a positive season. I can't take any kind of cynicism or insecurity or jealousy or resentment or any of those negative things, those negative characteristic traits, any of that nastiness cannot go and live in a place of hope and faith and love. And so, in order for God to get that off of me, it has to break off of me, but I'm not breaking down. I'm breaking off pieces that no longer serve me, things that could bring me down, things that could allow me to sink, so that I can stay afloat, so that I can be above the water where God intended me to be. And it's so funny because when I think about life and I think about all the obstacles that come up, all the things that stand in, my way, or things that happened in life, just as real life things. Every time I'm focused on God, it's like smooth sailing. It's like, I'm not saying things don't happen in life, but I prayed about this one person in my life, and I really just wanted them to have a softened heart and to really just find God and to have the peace that they so desperately need in their life. Like, I really wanted them to be able to see that it could be better than that. They don't have to be miserable, that they don't have to treat people badly. And they really started being a better person. And I, for a second, was like, hold on, wait, what? Why is this person? And then I remembered that you can't question things. Like, you can have questions, but you can't keep your eyes, you can't take your eyes off of God. When you are praying for things, you have to just stay focused, just like on the water. You can't, as soon as you take your eyes off God, as soon as you have doubt in your mind, the sinking will start to happen. And you don't want to have sinking faith. You want to have faith that withstands. You want to have the type of faith that God intended you to. And I know people talk about a mustard seed of faith. Yes, but doubt doesn't live in that mustard seed of faith. That mustard seed of faith is enough for God to take hold of and to do exponentially above all else. Like, it's not just like, oh, it's a little bit of faith mixed with a little bit of doubt. It's like, no, this is faith, regardless if it's a mustard seed or a giant amount of faith. And a lot of pastors say that we don't need a bunch of faith. We just need to have faith. And I truly believe that as long as you're focused on God, you don't have to be the biggest, baddest Christian in the world. You don't have to be the person who has been in church for 20 years or whatever else it is, because we all know that a length of time means nothing if your faith isn't in it. It means nothing if God isn't in it. You could be a baby Christian like me, and I'm not saying just me. This is just an example. You could be a baby Christian like me and have more faith than someone that has been in church for 20 years. You can be in church for 20 years and have faith more than someone who's been there for 30 years, whatever. And it doesn't, like I'm just saying that doesn't have to do with the amount of time. It has to do with your relationship with God. Are you focused on God? Are you really trying to learn more about the Bible? Are you really being in your word? Are you being in his presence? Are you really, really being intentional about your life? Because if you're not, then you may have to rearrange your priorities, because you don't want to end up shipwrecked in faith. I know I don't. I definitely don't want to get so preoccupied with things that don't really matter that I take my eyes off of God. I want to have God as my God and light. I want him to be everything to me. And in order for me to do that, I have to remember whose I am. I have to remember what is the most important thing. I have to remember what it is that I truly need in my life. And I can't find that in a person, place, or thing. I can't find that in anything but God. God is the only one who will ever fill my soul. He's the only one that will ever love me in spite of all my flaws. I mean, there might be other people who love me and my flaws, but you know what I mean. God is the only one who will be there for me no matter what time it is. Doesn't matter if it's 3 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock at night. I mean, it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter what time of day it is. He's the only one who writes, what is it, 66 books or words, letters, chapters to me. He's the only one who it's funny because there was this pastor who said something like, you're always waiting on a text from someone when God has 66 text messages waiting for you. But it's so true. Like, instead of worrying about things that you can't control, things that really don't matter, because in the end, no matter how hard you try to hold on to something, if it's not for you, it's not going to be there. In the end, it's not. You could try to flip and turn and toss and like do all these things that you read about and try to play mind games or whatever else it is that you think is going to actually work, but nothing's going to work but God. God is the only one who can really make destiny happen, who can really make a true connection happen, like a true true godly relationship, godly marriage, whatever else happen. And everything that you're doing is non and void. Null and void. Why do I want to say non and void? Everything that you're doing is null and void. It just doesn't matter, because I'm not saying it doesn't matter, like, your life matters, everything you're doing matters. I'm just saying that when you're doing the most, you're doing too much, because you shouldn't have to do all of that, especially if God's in it. When God is in it, there's nothing you can do to stop it. There's nothing any person could do to stop it, because what's for you is for you. God is not going to allow another person to come in to have what he had for you. He's going to make sure that whatever he needs to do, it will happen so that you could get everything that he promised you. He's not going to just tell you a lie. God is the God that he cannot lie. He is a God that he shall not lie. He will not lie to you about what he promised you. And you might not get it when you want it, but you will definitely get it on time. You will get it at the appointed time that God has for you. And sometimes I think we forget, and we get a little beside ourselves, and we start thinking like, oh, we're doing all of these things right, so why don't we have this right now? We are doing all of this, and so God is just going to give me this next week. Like, did God say he was going to give you this next week? Because he might have promised you that, but maybe you're not ready for that yet. He might have promised you that. Maybe you are ready, but you still have some things that you have to do in your purpose before that. Maybe you are ready, and God is saying, you're ready, but I need to see how you're going to react, knowing that you're ready, to show that you truly are faithful, and that you're not just going to flip the script. You're not just going to switch up on me out of nowhere and then act like you forgot who I am. Like, he might just be testing you. And when you really stay faithful, when you really stay focused on him, he will give you everything that you need. It's not that he's ever going to just pretend like he's going to give you something and then take it away. He's going to give you everything that he promised you. And it's so funny because sometimes, like, especially back in the day, they would say things like, oh, this is the job that I was supposed to have, and this person took it from me. A person will never be able to take anything from you that God intended you to have. They just won't. They can play all these games. They can try to set you up. They can throw you under the bus at work. They can do whatever it is that they want to do to try to make it seem as if you're not competent for the job. But anything that God intends for you to have, you will have. If something that small gets you out of that position, it's not for you. It was never intended for you, and it was always intended for you to do something else, something better. And instead of being resentful, instead of getting like feeling a certain type of way about it, like, you can of course be like upset or sad in a moment, but don't live there. Like, know that God got you, especially if you're a good person, especially if you are a good worker, especially if you're doing the things that you need to do. You're being a good steward, and you are focused on him. He will make sure that everything is exactly the way it should be, that you get all the things that you need. Now, it might not happen exactly the way that you think it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And I think it's important for us to remember that no matter what's going on in our life, even when it seems like there's no possible way, God got you. Like, you just don't understand. It's funny because I'm gonna say this because I want to be real. I had to take a moment because I don't want to just jump ahead of God. I want to make sure I wait, because I don't just like to say things just to say things. So, so I had said something in a past video about this dream about God showing me like a moment in my life that I could have. And it wasn't everything. It wasn't how it was going to happen or anything else. It was just like a moment. And that moment was so inspirational. It was something that really felt like it motivated me. And I don't know if I'm the only person that does this, that's going to admit to it, but I'm going to admit to it because I feel like there will be other people that do this sometimes. So God told me that he had this thing for me, right? That this is like something that may be for me. And I'm like, in my head, because I'm still working on me. I was like, so God, since I gotta wait on it, like, in the meantime, can I do a couple of these other things? Instead of just being patient, because I used to struggle with patience, so I'm really trying. And so I'm, and then like I just imagine in my head giving me the side eye, like, didn't I just tell you this was gonna be for you? So the stuff that you're doing in the meantime might mess up the whole plan. Like you might end up doing something that throws the whole plan off, or you might end up being like the people who escaped from Pharaoh with Moses that ended up having to be on this long journey when it was only supposed to probably be a week. Now, instead of you waiting a week for this thing, now you got to wait a couple years because you want to be beside yourself. like, like, let's not do that. Don't underestimate me, So just like for other people who may be thinking that, because I know I can't be the only one who thinks like that. But I'm like, in the meantime, if I just do this just to like fill my time up, and God's like, so out of all the things that you're supposed to be doing in your purpose, all the things that I placed on you, upon you, you're going to take this time to do some frivolous things that mean nothing to your purpose, that are going to do nothing to 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 push you forward. They're not going to do anything to propel you forward. They're just going to hold you back. They're going to keep you at the level that you're at, and I'm trying to move you somewhere else. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Now, will you have everything that you need? Absolutely. But you will not be able to get what you want and what you need. And I was like, okay, you told me. But seriously, like, we really have to be patient and just know that he's God and know that it's going to happen at an appointed time. We can't just rush things. We can't get things because we want them. We have to get what God wants us to have, not just what we want. Like, we only get what we need. Not only because there's a lot of things that God gives me, and I'm like, "Oof, are you sure you got the right person?" and I'm just so grateful for all the blessings that I have. And sometimes I get that spiritual amnesia, and I'm just like, you forget how good God is, or you forget all the blessings that God is giving you. And you start thinking about, well, maybe if I do this, and it's like, didn't God already bring you through like several other things? So why wouldn't he do it now? Like the same God that did it before can do it again. He will continuously be able to do it because he's God. And sometimes you'll just get beside yourself. You really just start to feel like you need to take control of your life, or you need to do this in order for this to happen. Like for people who are waiting for the job, you don't have to do extra stuff to get the job. You just need to be you. You need to wait on God. Just do the things that God intends for you to do. Be a good worker, and God will bless you. For the people that are waiting for a partner, you just need to wait on God. Don't just date. I had to laugh at this part when it popped in my head, but don't just date people that you know are interested in you because you know they're interested in you. Don't just keep that friend around because you need a male voice, because you just feel like this will just preoccupy my time while I wait for my husband. And for men, like the same thing. Like, don't just be like, I'm gonna just date this girl because while I'm waiting for my wife, this will keep me company. In the meantime, like, be intentional, because while you are spending that time with someone who you know absolutely isn't for you, God is allowing the person who is for you to pass you by. Then you gotta wait on the next shipment. Mm, mm, mm. And just like the people that escaped from Pharaoh with Moses, you are going to be waiting around a really long time. You're going to extend your waiting period because you chose to do what you wanted and not what God needed for you to do. So, in conclusion, when it comes to being shipwrecked in faith, make sure that you stay focused on God. Know that he is God and that he has everything under control. You don't have to do the most. Like, stop doing the most. Stop being out there out in these streets acting like you just got it. Like you got to hustle so hard. You got to grind so hard. Like yes, work. Faith without works is dead. So yes, work. Don't be lazy, and you need to rest. Like, and I have a video where I broke down the difference between laziness and resting, because I feel like some people really feel like hustling all the time is the way to go. Or some people feel like just being lazy is going to give you blessings. Like God doesn't just bless you because you're a Christian. laziness is not next to godliness. That is like the worst thing that you could do. Just like overextending yourself and just working yourself to the bone isn't godliness either. God wants you to be working, but he doesn't want you to be so restless that you don't get to hear from him. And I think it's important for us to have a healthy balance between the two. Like, yes, you put forth an effort, and you also have a day of a Sabbath day. You also have a day of rest, a day dedicated towards just hearing from God, really resting in His Word, really focusing in on Him, and not just in on the world or in on the things that you think that you need to do. Because sometimes we fill our life with things that are doing nothing for us. They're just wasting time, and we feel like we're doing so much because we're always constantly going, when God is saying, if you would have just rested this day, I would have gave you an opportunity to meet this person, or I would have gave you, opened these doors for you, and you would have gotten the email instead of being out running around like a chicken with your head cut off. Like, just wait on me. I got you. Like, don't be concerned about your husband or your wife. Don't be concerned about the job. Like, don't be worried. Sorry. Don't be worried about the husband or wife, or don't be worried about your job. Just worry about God. Like, just focus on God. Just be content in knowing that He is God. He's a God that He cannot lie. He's got you covered. Like, you stay focused on Him, you stay in your word, and you stay obedient and sacrifice, and God got you. He got you covered. Like, sometimes we just really do the most, and we're the ones that are making it harder for ourselves. They really are. Like, if you're like me, I do that. I feel okay admitting that. And it's so true. We just really feel like we have to be the ones that do all of these things when God's got it. God's taking care of everything in the background. Sometimes things will happen in my life, and I'm like, how did that even happen? That doesn't even make sense. Like, it shouldn't have even happened like that. Like, and the only explanation is God. The only explanation is God. And people can come up with theories all they want, and they can say all of these other things. This is why, because you worked here, but I worked on a lot of other things too, and it did not happen like this. And the weird way that it happened is how I know it's God, because I can't even explain it to people. Like, God is so amazing and so strategic that sometimes you don't even realize how it happened. It just happened. And when it's like that story from PMJ, Pastor Mike Jr., when he was doing a sermon, and he was like, you ever try to explain a blessing to someone and you're like, you can't explain it because it don't even make no sense? Like, it doesn't even make any sense. Like, that's how my blessings are most of the time. Like, I will say something or do something, and I'll be like, yeah, and then I went here and I met this person, and then I got this deal at such and such place. And and they're like, so you met a person and got a deal, and I'm like, I met a random person that didn't even know that I was an entrepreneur. Like, it doesn't make any sense how it happened, why it would happen, why that person would be at that specific place, like why we would even start a conversation. Like, it's for us to even be there at the same time. Like, it's just it's no way to explain it but God. It really is. And God He just makes things happen. Like, when it's for you, man, it's like everything in your way jumps out of the way. Everything. Just for you to be able to have it. And I don't know if that makes any sense to other people, but it really is like that. Like, the person God has for me, I feel like it's going to be like my other blessings. Like, I'm just going to be randomly, I don't know, going to this thing that God tells me to go to. Or I'm going to do something that God tells me to do, and I don't know how the conversation's gonna start or anything, but it probably would just be like out of nowhere, this random thing happens, and I'm like, what? And I just went to one thing, and I mean, it really would make no sense. It just happened. Out of all the millions of people, I'm the person for some reason. Like, no, not for some reason, but yeah, God just, and then you don't have to worry about, that's another thing that I feel so secure with God when it comes to when I meet the person, or when I get the job, or I'm another opportunity that God opens up for me that's a blessing, is that I don't ever feel worried about the other women or the other people who are trying to go for the job, because I know that if God has this job for me, no one else is going to get it. I'm going to be the person for the job. It doesn't matter if there's 20 other qualified people and I don't even have that I don't even have that I want to say recommendation. Why can't I think of the word right now? Oh my goodness. I don't even have the qualification for the job. That's the word I was looking for. But for some reason, I qualify because I got God, because God got me. I need to say that the right way, because God got me. So I qualified for the position that I didn't even have qualifications for. Just like it'll be with the person. It'll probably be thousands of other people that they could be with, thousands of other people that I could be with, but for some reason, this is the person for me. I'm the person for them, randomly. But it's not random. It's all intentional because it's God. And it'll be the things that we both need. It won't be what we want, but it'll be what we need. Like they might want a person who looks this way. I might usually date a person who's like this, but for some reason it makes sense. For some reason, everything just falls into place. And will it be like easy breezy? No, because relationships take work. Like you have to be intentional. You have to be willing to get to know someone. You have to be intentionally dating. You can't just be all out willy-nilly doing whatever and expect to have, I mean, I'm not saying that those things don't happen, but I'm just saying when you are coming from the best of intentions, usually you get the best results. And especially when God's in it, everything will be exactly like it's supposed to be. And so for me, it's like I can be when you know that you know that you know, like, and when you know that this is God, it's like it doesn't matter who flips and turns or wears what or is whichever place whenever, you know that it's for you. You know that that job is for you, so it doesn't matter like who else enters the room. Like the CEO of XYZ company could come in, but if God has that position for me, I got it. It's like that. And and so I really hope that you stay focused on God and know that he got you, and don't allow your faith to waver, because it can be easy sometimes when you get disappointed or you don't get what you want to feel like you start to have doubts, or to feel like, well, maybe God won't do this for me. Like he'll do it for everyone else, but just not for me. But God's got you. He's working it out for you in the background. You might not be able to see a day to day or second to second game plan, but he's got it all figured out. And as long as you're being obedient, as long as you're staying focused on him, everything will be exactly the way it's supposed to be. You don't have to go out of your way to do anything. You don't have to do the most. You don't have to chase someone down to force them to be with you. All you have to do is be yourself. You don't have to chase down the job to get them to call you back. I mean, of course, you can call and check on the position. That's what you should do after an interview. But you don't have to just constantly keep seeing, is the job available? Is the job available? Because when the job comes available, they will remember you because God will put it on their hearts to hire you. It's just, it's something about God. I was about to say something about the name Jesus, but seriously, it really, like, I almost started doing one of these because you don't understand. God just got me so good. Like, God, God just got it. He got it like that. He really does. And as long as you stay focused on him, I know I keep saying this, but for some reason I feel like I have to keep re-saying this because it's so easy to get distracted. And it's so easy to allow like a disappointment to make you feel like you want to be doubtful, or to allow your faith to be shipwrecked. But you can't allow your faith to sink. You have to stay focused on God so you can be above water. And as long as you're doing that, everything below the surface doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is you and God. So I already said in conclusion, I'm going to probably just say thank you for watching this video, which is something I don't normally say, but thank you. And I hope that this video helped you in some way, shape, or form, that you were able to implement this in your life, or you were able to see a little part of yourself in it, and it allowed you to see that regardless of what's happening in your life, that God is who he says he is, and nothing anyone else says is ever going to make you stop believing that.